Hello.
Hello. Do you want the clicker?
Oh. You can click. You've probably got more slides than I have.
Oh, goodness. Not very good with these. Did everybody have a nice lunch? Did everybody get dessert? I missed that bit. We were down here at 1:15 going, oh, where is everybody? I totally missed the pudding, which is very unlike me. So I have to load up on cinnamon buns shortly. So Nick and I are really excited to talk to you all today about the new research. So it's the 3rd edition, and you are the first people on the planet to see it, although I think our strategist actually posted it on LinkedIn about an hour and a half ago. So you're not actually the first, but you're nearly the first. So it's very exciting. And for those of you that have been at the conference before, you'll know that we always launch the research at this conference. So we're really excited to be part of the summit team. So this is me. I'm actually wearing the blue version of this dress. I realise I've dressed to match the profile picture. So as you know, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Mando, a complete loyalty nerd, and we've written these papers. So this is the 3rd edition, and in addition to the Understanding Loyalty in Europe white paper series, we also do the Understanding What Brits Want loyalty series for promotions and loyalty. And this is my partner in crime.
Hello. Would you believe that's a selfie? I think I've managed to pull off a good professional photo there.
Very good.
A selfie in a bedroom. So my name's Nick. I head up the account management team at YouGov, as you can see. If you don't know YouGov, we're a research data and analytics group. So we run market research with millions of consumers worldwide. We offer our clients syndicated data products as well as custom research solutions. So as Charlie said, we've been working together for a while. Mando is one of our greatest clients in the UK. So where YouGov comes into this relationship is to provide the data that allows Mando to make data-led decisions when they're working with their clients and partners.
And YouGov are an awesome partner. So they work really collaboratively with us on all the loyalty and promotions data points that we use for all our clients, for all our prospecting, for all our new business. And it's a really, really brilliant data set. It's really broad, it's really deep, and you can really get into kind of segment-based understanding. So it's been a great partnership. And actually, it's a bit of a testament to bravery and kind of thinking ahead, because this whole partnership started with me really cheekily going over to YouGov and saying, I want to do a white paper. And I think it was about, 6 years ago, YouGov were kind of a really brave partner and said, yeah, all right. And now YouGov have a whole series of white papers, and so do we. So from little starts, great things can happen. So Nick and I are going to talk to you about the research, but we'd be remiss not to talk about the enormous team that help us pull this together. So there's a big team at Mando, there's a big team at YouGov, but one of the most exciting bits of the paper, I think, is all the experts that we get to work with. Every year, we try and add in additional market experts and additional brand experts into the paper, and you'll see that kind of throughout. And we're honoured to have lots of them here today. So we've got Spain, Italy, Sweden, Norway, France, Germany, Poland. Now, Radek is here by surprise. Where are you, Radek?
At the back.
At the back. Is it Slovenia? Slovakia? The Netherlands, Denmark, Hungary, and then we've got our 2 program case studies in as well, IKEA and Club Volta. So I hope you really enjoy looking at all those markets and learning how loyalty varies across all those different countries.
So how's the next 15 minutes going to go? Well, to start off with, we will lift the bonnet on the research, talk a little bit about where the data has come from. I think in Charlie's opening remarks, you said that we had run this white paper for 3 years in a row now. So we're in a position to be able to start trending the data and understand the direction of travel. We're then going to deep dive on 8 key findings. So these are really interesting insights that are in the white paper, which we've lifted out to discuss in a bit more detail with you today. And then lastly, as you've heard, there'll be a panel with our market experts. So what's in the white paper? Well, for starters, there's data on 24 different markets. So it provides a really good wide-angle lens on loyalty across the continent. There's 3 main areas or themes running throughout the white paper: loyalty membership, loyalty appeal, and loyalty impact. But crucially, those metrics are split by market. So you can compare like for like, understand where the opportunity is, where the growth is, where the challenges are. There's 12 market snapshots, and this is where the market experts have fed into the white paper. So their understanding of local market nuances, economic situations, cultural nuances, really helps bring the data to life in the white paper. There's 2 deep dive program case studies, one on IKEA, sorry, to be on brand, and there's one on Avolta as well. So if you're offering a program that is in multiple markets, these are really, really well worth a read. And my favorite, Mando's loyalty gauge, a barometer style reading, which gives a net score for loyalty, sort of prevalence and performance in your market.
That's where it gets competitive and you can start kind of pitching yourself against the other markets. So it's a great kind of overview of what loyalty looks like.
So where's the data come from? The answer to that question is YouGov's syndicated data product, Global Profiles. So it's an audience profiling and analytics tool. Now, we have data in 48 different markets in this platform. So half of those, 24 markets, are the markets that are covered in the white paper. Now, globally, we have data on just over 266,000 different consumers. So each one of those individuals has answered a 1,000-question questionnaire. So we have a really, really comprehensive understanding of what those people look like, their demographics, their psychographics, their attitudes, beliefs, opinions, behaviors, marketing, consumption, media consumption. So it allows our clients to build really granular audiences in this platform, understand how to reach their target audiences, what makes them tick.
And in terms of what drives the research, other than just kind of being a loyalty nerd and really kind of curious, there's sort of a few key things. We think it's really important that we actually look at what behaviours really are. Now, it is research, so it is stated behaviour. So when we work with this, we do always overlay the kind of behavioural data and we amplify it with other reports and we sense check it versus what's going on in the market. But it's really important, I think, because sometimes we can get sucked into our own industry and to think about what consumers actually really do and really think about loyalty programs in the grand scheme of everything else that is going on in their life. So we look at what behaviours really are. We look at what people actually think and feel, and I think that's really interesting for us in the space of loyalty. You know, how appealing do they find loyalty programs? What's their propensity to join loyalty programs? And it never ceases to amaze me how much variation there is across the 24 markets, because I think there can be a tendency to lump Europe into one big clump, and actually we couldn't be more different if we tried. And then lastly, we look at impact, and we look at impact across emotional and functional metrics. At a European level, we've got 4 key data points that we look at. And then in the UK, in our GB data, we've actually got some additional metrics. We sort of sneak a few extra in with YouGov, and I'm always pitching to Nick. So if you want any extra data points, today is your moment to collar him and make requests, because I think it's really important that we keep building that data set and we keep adding new markets in, but really thinking about what appeal, membership, and impact really look like for the average European. The bit that we added into this paper, which is actually, weirdly, my favourite bit of it, is the inspiration, because I think there's nothing like talking to an in-market expert about what's going on in their market, how it's been influenced by the politics, the culture, the history of the market. So we bring that in for inspiration, for connection, and then for really learning what does and doesn't work, because the data can only take you so far. It's really important that we then overlay the stories and the real-world experiences, and there are some absolutely brilliant programs in this paper, many of which I hadn't heard of before we started this piece of research. So we're always kind of adding those case studies in. And then the final bit is really about that kind of core belief that we all make better decisions and have better loyalty programs when we have really kind of smart data. And I know you all agree with me, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I think that's a really key thing. And as we've said, we kind of run these constant papers. Britain, I think we're on the 4th one. European, we're on the 3rd one. And hopefully there'll be many, many more to come in the future.
So now we're going to deep dive into 8 key findings, and membership is a really, really good place to start. It nicely sets the scene. You can see 64% of us across Europe are members of at least one program, 64.3% if you really like your stats. Now, that number has increased from last year, which is really positive news, right? So loyalty membership is on the rise, and I'll talk about that a bit more in the next slide. That's a high of 89% in Finland, Finland really has skyrocketed this year in a lot of metrics. I think next up was Norway, and then Britain. Great Britain was...
We're pretty high. We're normally about third.
With 81% possibly, if I remember that correctly. But all of the stats are in the white paper, so definitely download it. So the next deep dive is around loyalty appeal. I'll talk you through these. So 59% think loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. 49% think every brand should offer a loyalty program, and 42% join loyalty programs each time they're given the opportunity. What I'll draw your attention to, though, is the smaller number underneath, which we probably should have blown up, but isn't necessarily a problem with this enormous screen. So all of these metrics are on the rise, and I think what we're seeing here is what's driving that increase in loyalty membership we saw in the previous slide. Loyalty appeal is up, and loyalty membership is following suit. Now, there's some interesting market nuances here. I don't think any market declined across all three metrics, again, speaking to the fact that loyalty is very much on the rise across Europe. But I think us Brits, actually, we declined 1 percentage point in the last two metrics, which is bad news for us. But again, get the white paper, all the details in there.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting for all of us as a loyalty marketer is to start to use this, and it can help really inform your business cases, and it can inform your growth strategies for your program. And when you're running a program across multiple markets, you can really use this data to understand where the opportunities are, where the lowest hanging fruit is, and actually where you're going to face kind of bigger challenges. So we've tried to bring that out in the paper and the research as well. So when we start to get into the kind of the individual metrics, this is my favorite. Loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. So the European average is 59%. And what we can see here is right at the top is Great Britain. That's what I mean. You do start getting a little bit competitive. So it's brilliant that the British are at the top. We've beaten the Irish. Very excited about that. And we're thrashing the French. So that was marvellous. But Great Britain, Ireland, Slovakia, Poland, Germany, Italy, France, Hungary, Bulgaria, Croatia. Obviously, we've then got the full list of 24 in the paper. So what we see is at the bottom, we sort of have a clump of slightly more skeptical markets, the Danish, the Turkish, and the Dutch. And you'll see some of our experts' hypotheses as to why those markets are so much less, less keen and have less of a propensity to think that loyalty programs are a great idea. But again, it's pretty awesome that 7 in 10 British adults thinks that loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. I think that's a pat on your back to take internally if you're working on a British loyalty program, which I know many of you are. In that market, things are going well. Loyalty programs are doing the right thing. And I think that's another way you can use the data. So you can look at the market that you're operating in, you can look at who's better and worse, and then go, well, what's happening in that market? To coin the IKEA phrase, what can I steal with pride? I think that's a really interesting way to use the data. When we then look at saturation, I think when we started this, we had a hypothesis that loyalty was going to hit a limit. Across Europe, there's been an explosion of new programs as everybody's kind of racing to get first-party data, zero-party data, and trying to understand their markets and kind of copy the Dunnhumby type model. But what we see is we're not really seeing saturation, because actually consumers are still really loving loyalty programs. So if we look at Ireland, Bulgaria, Croatia, Poland, France, Greece, Slovakia, Romania, Italy, Spain, more than half of the adults in that market think that every single brand should have a loyalty program. That's extraordinary, and again, quite an interesting way when you start to use the data about where you should be focusing your efforts. And again, a skeptical bunch in Denmark, the Dutch and the Finnish don't. They're only at 20, 29% and 36%. And again, you'll see some hypotheses in the paper as to why those markets are tougher. The last appeal metric that we look at is I join every time I'm given the chance. And it's awesome because the Polish will just join anything. We see this every year in the data. So if you're running a program in Poland, or you have a brand that doesn't have a loyalty program in Poland, get one. It's a really value-driven market. Open Loyalty have provided the expert commentary on that market. It's absolutely fascinating. So 59%, so 6 in 10 kind of Polish adults will just join a loyalty program every time they're given the chance. You don't even necessarily need to invest in huge acquisition rewards in that market. You can just kind of open it up and people will come. Whereas again, in the Danish, the Dutch and the Swedish are playing much harder to get, so they're only 1 in 5 will join. The value equation and the demand that they want from their loyalty program is so much higher. So again, for those of you on international programs, you might adapt your acquisition strategy for each of those different markets. When we then look at impact, so you know, it's really interesting to look at the Hyperfinity point of view. Analytics is absolutely where your business case should be founded on, as should pilots and in-market trials and everything else. But it is always interesting to overlay stated intent or stated attitudinal data on that. So we look at kind of 4 key metrics. So 42% say being a member of a loyalty program makes them more loyal. That's flat versus 2024. 36% say they are more likely to recommend your brand when they are a member of your program, up 1 percentage point. 33% feel more emotionally connected to your brand when they're a member of the loyalty program. That's up 2 percentage points. And 36% will spend more when they're a member of your loyalty program. And that's up from 29% in 2024. And I think that cost of living trend, that rise to value that we've seen across loyalty programs really explains that bottom metric. People are actually using their loyalty programs at the moment to balance out their household budget. So it was no surprise to any of us that that metric has increased as much as it has. So membership is on the increase, appeal is on the increase, and impact is largely constant apart from spend, where we're seeing that stated increase. This is the loyalty gauge. This is where I get a bit nerdy, but we love the loyalty gauge because what it enables us to do is go, which are the most loyalty engaged markets and which aren't, where are the cautionary tales, and where's the inspiration that we can learn from. So it's made up of 3 calculations. So we've got membership at 6.4, so how high is membership in your market? How high is appeal in your market? How high is impact in your market, and what's the net score? And for those of you that are as nerdy as me, all the calculations are in the white paper in the small print. You can come and ask me about any questions about how we do it, all validated and approved by YouGov. What that then looks like across our 24 markets is a really interesting story about where is membership highest, where is appeal highest, where is impact highest, and how should you as loyalty marketeers be adapting your strategy. So, and you know, markets can have huge variation, but still have the same net score. Now, there's no one way to use this data because it depends on your unique marketing challenge. Like, we're always like, oh, we get to this slide, like, what do we present? People always ask me what the headlines are. And my answer to that is, well, it very much depends on what the question is and what the challenge is and opportunities that you are facing across these different markets. So you might be, for example, in Turkey going, I've got a real problem, like nobody's engaging in my loyalty market. So you might look at it and go, well, actually, what are the markets that are performing really well? And you look at the top end, you take the top 5 and do a review of what's happening in the loyalty industry in those markets that's going so well. What can I learn? What can I steal? Or it might be that, well, membership is really high in my market, but impact is really low. How should I be adapting my strategy? So again, there's no sort of one way of using it, but hopefully it can be used in multiple ways against multiple questions. The other bit of the paper, which is so great, is all the really good case studies that are in there. So we've got 2 long-form case studies, as Nick has talked about. And Camillo and Kirsty are in the audience, so you can get them and ask them any questions you like about it. You've already seen them on stage kind of talking about their programs. But we also asked every single expert to provide 3 examples of brilliant programs in their markets. And this is the full list of all the really cool programs in here. And I think we pretty much crossed every sector, every vertical, every type of program you can imagine, every single different loyalty proposition. We've got points programs, tiers programs, fitness programs, telco programs, retail programs, coffee programs, a whole array of really interesting case studies in here. And for each of them, there's the kind of source data as well. So if you want to look into them more, you can use it as a sort of a starting point.
Thanks. I think you'll agree. The white paper gives a very good pan-European view of loyalty across the continent. As Charlie's just been saying, very much the Brits, the Poles, the Irish, certainly leading the charge this year. But you know, for me, I'm an industry outsider, and I always like the metrics such as number 6, that loyalty still has a really positive impact, especially on spend. I think from a marketing perspective, loyalty programs are a really kind of unique tool in a marketer's arsenal. For me, they really engage with consumers' hearts and minds, but I think, as we can say, they always have and continue to engage with consumers' wallets as well.
Any CFOs in the room, but we know there aren't, would be loving that one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to call up some of our experts who've come today to join us up on stage, or join me up on stage, and we're actually going to talk to you a little bit more about those stories in the markets and some of the case studies and some of the things they've seen. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
An expert. I sort of feel like I'm calling the Avengers experts. Assemble.